Today I was going to make a little video. A lot of people do a walkthrough on their system and what everything has and does. So I was going to try to do that today real quick, a little bit. Maybe I'll just do the house today and then some of the other stuff tomorrow. I know this room is not the neatest, so you don't have to tell me, but this is where it started, and this is how it started, and it just kind of grew and grew, and everything kept adding and adding, and obviously it needs to be everything pulled out and redone now that we've reached a permanent state. When that'll happen, I'm not sure, but I've seen a lot of talk about inverters and stuff as well, you know, high frequency versus low frequency. A lot of videos on, you know, it won't start my well pump, it won't start my air conditioner unless it's a mini split. And this is where we all started out. We started with just one inverter on the wall there, tied into the electrical panel for this little section of the house. And I really didn't know anything about solar at the time. So I went online and I saw inverters, and they said 240 volt output, 48 volts, so I ordered them up. And then after I got them, I realized that they're all European power, where you have neutral on one wire and 240 on the other wire. But at that point, because I kind of bail off into things, I already had too many of them. So I was like, I can't send all these back, so we're just going to figure a workaround. And I'll show you how I overcome the high frequency versus low frequency issue. These are all high frequency inverters, and they're all Palmister or Palmer, however you want to say that. I've had zero trouble out of these inverters. They're actually pretty impressive. From what I've seen, we've had a lightning strike on our 200-foot tower on top of the ridge, shut everything down. And I was already going through my mind, sitting at the table when the lights went out, and I'm like, oh man, I saw that big lightning strike, it lit up the whole valley. I'm like, everything's cooked. So I'm gonna go out to the shed and grab 2 spares, bring them in, hook them up, disconnect all the other ones, get the power back on for the evening so that we can live a normal life. And about the time I was there in the thought process, everything come back on. And I came in here and looked at all the chargers, they'd all just rebooted. They took a direct hit on a 200-foot tower. It fed back in on a power cord going up to that tower in my shop out there and melted the receptacle and the wire completely off. That's how much power they took coming back. And they all just reset and came back on. I was like, that's pretty impressive in my world. Because lightning does what it wants. You can do the best you can to corral it and tame it. It wasn't because anything wasn't grounded. Every structure I have is grounded, and they're all tied together. Every structure on this property, including the tower, have a ground wire that runs all the way back to the original ground wire on the house to keep the potential the same, because grounding matters. And I've measured with a meter. You can actually get up to 200 volts difference between ground. Just between the ground at my house and the ground at my barn. I was holding the ground wire for my house, and I reached down to put the acorn nut on the ground rod at my barn. It almost knocked me out. Went back, got my meter. It was 262 volts. And that was ground. Of course, once I reached down there and touched it to it, everything was happy. You can touch everything, grab everything, and everything's good. You can have a huge potential difference in ground from one location to another, so it's important that you tie them all together back to the original. And I think it's worse for us because I'm pretty sure there's an underground river here, and it's not very deep, so I'm pretty sure the ground rods are in it, and if you look into that, water moving across galvanic or copper rods actually produces electricity. So anyways, everything is grounded. The lightning still hit. It's going to do what it wants to do. The tower is the tallest thing around here for miles, and everything came back. So these inverters, I notice people talk about pricing and everything. These inverters are $550 a piece. Okay, that's pretty cheap for an inverter. You can afford to get a few spares. These are running on the original firmware, and you could only parallel 9 of them. The new firmware, you can parallel 12 of them. So these are earlier renditions. Like I said, they've been in here a couple of years, and they just buzz along. All of my piping comes in the corner over there. All the solar panels come to the breakers right there. And there's all the breakers for the actual panels themselves. And because there's so many batteries in here and so much everything, we've got a lot of bus bars. And I started getting confused. I had to label which one was system, which one was battery, because basically of which one's before and after the shunt. Because if it's after the shunt, then you can't read how much current's going through it. So you need to get all the charging on one side of the shunt and all the batteries on the other side of the shunt. But everything comes in on the chart, inverters, and then comes down. All the 220 goes out that box right there. They're just all jumped together. Breakers are labeled 1.8, 2.9, then the rest of them there. And that goes outside, leaves here, and goes over to my generator panel, which I'll explain in a minute. The 48 volt DC right there ties it into the she shed, because it has a battery bank and a separate system, and that allows us to feed off of it should we need to, for redundancy. Say this system goes entirely down or the batteries go completely dead, we can throw those breakers and connect to the she shed, the second grid, and everything comes back up. And that also ties into the barn, which is a third redundancy. Then here, what I have, that's a little solar assistant. That's how I monitor it. I'm sure there's better ways, and Lord knows I could use help on that. But this is my HOA for the generator, which is handoff auto for those not electricians. And what it does, if I flip it to off, then the generator will not come on under any conditions. If I flip it to hand, the generator will start immediately. I leave it in auto, and that's what this right here does. This is a voltage monitor. It monitors the voltage of the batteries. Once they get down to preset, I think I'm set at 49 volts is my preset. If the batteries get down to 49 volts, which is almost dead, then it sends a signal here, and this is a delay on make relay, and it'll hit that relay. The relay sends a signal from the feed here, which will start the generator, and it ties into the standard Generac starter panel. So it'll go ahead and start the generator, and the generator will come on, and I'll show you in a second. There's a couple of automatic transfer switches because we have a tie-in for 3 generators, and that's the first one, and whichever one powers up, the transfer switches will move automatically to tie that one to it. And then I have 4 of the EG4 chargers. You can tell they're the original ones because they're yellow, and they're okay. The ones that work, if they work, they work. I'm not a big fan of the EG4 chargers anyway. I have one that will only put out 38 amps. They have 2 power bricks in them, but they tie in on an edge card. And my neighbor got one too, and his completely died after like 6 months. So I'm not sure how long these will last, but currently they're supposed to put out 5 kilowatts each. And when the generator comes on, it's a 20 kW generator. I have staging because that's a big hit for a generator all at one time. I have staging outside, I'll show you in a second, with more time delay relays, which brings on each charge inverter after so many seconds to let the generator adjust to the load. And that's how my generator comes on. It doesn't come on and power the house, it just comes on and charges the batteries and lets the inverters continue to run the house. Now, should the inverters fail and go offline, through the automatic transfer switch, the generator will come on and power the house directly as well. But you have to add in a couple of transfer switches to get that to work, which I'll show you in a minute. All right, all the EG4 batteries tie back into this, but I've never managed to get them to talk to the inverters. The only downside to these Powell misters that I've come across is I can't get any of the communication stuff to work hardly at all. Okay. And then I have some extra panels out there, so I just have one little lone charge controller that takes care of like 6 extra panels and helps charge. The batteries that I built, someone was asking me if I built any that weren't in a case. Absolutely, got 8 of them. And those are those batteries right there. You can see they're all topped off. This is the BMS that I used on them. It's JK, just like all my other BMSs in the big cases. If you want to get I don't know, it's all in Chinese, so I don't know if it'll make much difference, but it was the best form factor because the other ones are all big and they got wires hanging out everywhere. This one comes with them already. You just throw some terminations on there, put them under the lugs, and everything plugs in one end. The screen plugs in, your balance terminals plug in, and then if you want CAN or RS-45, it's got a little adapter, it plugs into there. I don't know, I like them. I haven't had any problems. I've been running these for 2 years. You can pull them up on the phone. They've got Bluetooth, and as you can see, they just work, and they're actually pretty cool. They're little touch screens. So I don't know, I like them. I made the little mount because they don't send you any kind of mounting hardware. That's one of the batteries down there that I built without a case. You can see I double banded it, used triple clamps. I took some little 1-inch aluminum angle and put it on the corners so the straps weren't cutting directly into the batteries. And I actually made them in 2 packs of 8 and brought them in 1 pack at a time. And then I put the jumper on across the back to make them 1 pack. And you can see all the balance leads go to the front. It's really hard to get in there and get a picture of it, but the BMS is just zip tied to the straps on the front along with a breaker. There is a breaker and there is a BMS on it. And then you can see the little white connector down there. That's actually the screen coming off of that particular one. And I just uncovered that one. I keep a piece of wood on top of them because wood doesn't conduct electricity. And this is a stack of them here too that are a lot neater, but I was just running out of room. The room wasn't big enough. And then we have a 1-ton mini split to try to keep this room cool. And yes, even during the winter with it 10 degrees outside, that mini split is running because these make a lot of heat. They really do. And I guess that's about it for in here. I got a couple of cameras in here so I can watch it in case it decides to burn down or something. And I don't know if anybody's, I'm sure there's plenty of videos on the EG4 batteries, but the EG4 batteries seem all right. I ordered 24 of them at one time, and I did have one bad one. And I offered to just have them send me a new BMS, I talked to their tech support. They were like, well, pull the cover off, see what this looks like. And I was like, yeah, the BMS melted down. If you just send me another one, I'll put it on there. But I guess they didn't trust me. They said, just send the battery back, we'll send you another one. And they did. They were good about it. Wasn't no problem. It took 3 or 4 weeks to get everything sorted out. But they did send me a fresh one. And they just seem to charge and go. And these batteries, the ones that I built, have been in here for probably over a year, and it shows the state of health on them is 99%. But none of the batteries talk to the inverters. All the BMSs are configured on the batteries to charge them to the level that the BMS thinks it should be. And basically the inverters just ramp up to full power and give them what they need. And the BMSs will actually throttle the charge back to the batteries. If they could talk to each other, it would probably be better. I don't really understand what the need for that is, though. And I'm sure somebody could probably help me out with that. They've been working good for over 2 years, and the state of health on them is still between 98 and 99%. So I don't think I'm messing them up too much. Other than that, that's that for in here. We'll go outside and look at the control panels, and I'll show you what I've done out there.